following excerpts are from an event Human Rights First organized at the Freedom Forum in Washington, D.C. on April 21st.
Let me say, I began my government service working for President Carter, who did in fact make very clear that human rights were central to American foreign policy. And we had lots of very interesting discussions about this. The question was whether having human rights as central was some kind of just a do-goody policy. And the bottom line was, we thought that it was actually the most realistic policy for the United States because it explained who we were, and it was part of how people saw America as the beacon of hope, and therefore it was not just some kind of idealistic thing. It was what made the most sense. And it was the beginning, I think, of the writing of the human rights reports and a variety of ways that people saw something that was emblematic about the United States but had not been stated as clearly as President Carter had stated it. I have always believed that it really is central to American foreign policy.
One of the things I think that's a real challenge now for the Obama administration is how to overcome some of the legacy of the policies of the last 8 years on the question of our values and a common standard.
I have a very special view of the United States. I wasn't born in the United States. I came here when I was 11 years old as a result of the fact that communists had taken over Czechoslovakia, where I was born. Human rights erased. And so I do believe that the United States is an exceptional country. I fully believe it, and I'm willing to argue it, but we can't ask that exceptions be made for us. I have a very hard time with the immigration issues. I was an immigrant, a legal one, but I was an immigrant. And so what this country has done for people like me and the gratitude, so that's very central. So I do think we're exceptional. But being exceptional not only means that we don't ask for exceptions, but that we are leaders. And what happened during the last 8 years, which I believe were disastrous, in fact, it ruined our reputation. And I think that that is what the very hard part for President Obama is, because he has to get us out of a hole where our allies, we were asking our allies to be complicit in something that basically is illegal. And therefore, I think that they must be pleased that we are getting on the right track.
It does strike me as that we have, in terms of setting a framework to make sure that this doesn't happen again, that we do want to send the right message to those people who were inside, career people who were trying to do the right thing. It's important for them to come through this period knowing that they were doing the right thing in raising those questions, and that there's some type of accountability that can serve that purpose. I'm not sure what it looks like.
I think that's right. It also brings in, frankly, you were saying the human rights community. I think that non-governmental organizations have a huge role in our system, in civil society generally, and that it is very important for the human rights community to keep pushing on this issue. Whether the human rights community gets everything it wants is a different point. But if it isn't pushing, then that pressure is, you need something for the counter pressure. And so while it may not always be totally satisfying, it is an absolutely essential aspect of the way our system is supposed to work.
Fear will do tremendous things, powerful things to people, otherwise straight-thinking people. And the strength of America has been, as much as anything else, that we have been able to work our way through that time that comes in societies, comes in lives, comes in personal lives, comes in national sovereignty lives, comes through the world in many ways. The turmoil, the thunderclaps, the storms, and the threats that are presented. Now, no matter how big we are, how powerful we are, how rich we are, and we are bigger, more powerful, richer than any nation on earth, that doesn't matter, because the problems we have today cannot be engaged and solved and move to some higher ground of resolution without the cooperation of all these other countries. It's impossible to do. You can't do it. Every challenge that we have that threatens our security, whether it's extremism, terrorism, proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, whatever it is going to require seamless networks of intelligence sharing and gathering. That means we're going to have to work very closely, closer than ever before, with our allies, allies in some common purpose, for some common interest. What he is doing, he's building a structure. He's building a platform. He is building a new structure of order of relationships so that he can work off that platform to reach into those leadership communities, into those countries, into those regions, to try to forge some cooperation and common interest and common purpose to deal with these great issues of our time. That's what he's doing. We have to assure the 300 million citizens of this country and the citizens of the world that America stands for something not just based on the norm, something better.
In 2004, people of like minds who were retired flag and general officers began to come together, and we signed some letters. We found each other. Human Rights First found us, and provided the glue that helped us formulate our ideas, have discussions that were meaningful, and from which arose, we think, important principles that should guide the country's behavior in this tough period dealing with difficult circumstances, particularly the interrogation of detainees. Our group included doctors and lawyers, all military people, ground combat commanders, seagoing officers, a chief of staff, former chief of staff of the Air Force, former commandant of the Marine Corps. You name it, the group had that kind of representation in its body. Through the good offices of Human Rights First, we had the opportunity during the primary season to talk one-on-one, off the record, with 8 of the then 15 or so presidential candidates. A couple of them twice. One of the two-timers turned out to be the Vice President of the United States, and Senator Clinton was the other one with whom we talked twice. We talked to now President Obama. Our greatest hopes were realized, exceeded in fact, when on the 22nd of November, as Elisa said, 3 executive orders and another directive were signed by the President, closing the secret CIA detention centers, closing Gitmo on a schedule, dealing obviously with the difficult issues in that, and convening a commission to ensure that there was a new perspective on the kinds of procedures and policies that would be needed and would be effective in the modern world.